We like to think our favorite foods were crafted by culinary geniuses in spotless kitchens, but the truth is, a lot of them are dark, moldy, bacteria-filled accidents. Today, we're counting down 10 times humanity let food rot, freeze, or mutate, and then decided to eat it anyway. The Popsicle. Kicking off our list at number 10, a quick palate cleanser before things get truly disgusting. In 1905, an 11-year-old kid named Frank Epperson left a cup of powdered soda and a wooden stirring stick out on his porch. A freak San Francisco cold snap dropped the temperature below freezing. The next morning, Frank yanked the frozen block out by the stick. Here's the simple science. Adding sugar to water actually lowers its freezing point. That's why it didn't turn into one solid, tooth-shattering block of ice. It froze into a soft, crunchy slush instead. It's the exact same reason salted roads don't ice over as easily in winter. And here's the twist. Frank didn't even patent his invention for another 18 years. Today, that one frozen accident sells over 2 billion popsicles worldwide every single year. Saccharin. Number 9 is a stark reminder to always wash your hands. In 1879, chemist Konstantin Fallberg was boiling coal tar derivatives in his lab. After a long day, he went home and grabbed a piece of bread for dinner without washing up. As he chewed, the bread tasted overwhelmingly sweet. Instead of panicking that he might have ingested something dangerous, he actually licked his own fingers to double-check. He hadn't poisoned himself. He had accidentally synthesized saccharin, the world's first artificial sweetener. In simple terms, the molecule locks onto your tongue's sweet taste receptors far more aggressively than sugar does, which is why your brain reads it as intensely sweet, even though it has 0 calories. In fact, it's roughly 300 to 400 times sweeter than sugar, which is exactly why only a tiny pinch ever makes it into your coffee. Worcestershire sauce. Proving that sometimes garbage just needs a few years to find itself. In the 1830s, 2 chemists in Worcester, England, tried to recreate a fish sauce recipe requested by a local lord who'd tasted something similar in India. Their first batch was so harsh they couldn't sell it. Disgusted, they shoved the barrels into a cellar and forgot about them. Around 2 years later, they rediscovered the barrels and, for some reason, decided to taste it again. Here's what actually happened down there. Bacteria spent those 2 years slowly breaking down the proteins in the anchovies and onions into smaller, simpler compounds. That's the same basic process that makes aged meat taste richer over time. Given enough time, rotten and flavorful are closer than you'd think. The final recipe was considered such a trade secret that even today, only 2 people at a time are allowed to know the full formula. Tofu. At number 7, a modern staple with a story passed down more through legend than record. As the story goes, over 2,000 years ago, a Chinese cook was boiling a soup of mashed soybeans and used unrefined sea salt to season it. That salt was packed with mineral impurities, calcium and magnesium, and the moment they hit the hot soup, a chemical reaction triggered. Simply put, those minerals grabbed onto the soy proteins floating in the liquid and forced them to clump together, a process called coagulation. It's the exact same chemistry that turns milk into cheese curds. The cook, so the legend says, tried the lumps anyway, and tofu was born. That same coagulation trick is still used today. Most store-bought tofu is made with nearly the identical mineral process, just with modern precision instead of guesswork. Yogurt. Number 6 is a breakfast favorite with a genuinely unsettling likely origin. Around 5000 BC, historians believe Central Asian nomads transported milk across the steppes in bags made from the stomachs of sheep and goats. Those stomach linings still contain natural digestive enzymes and wild bacteria. Combined with the heat, the milk didn't just spoil, it transformed. In basic terms, the bacteria ate the natural sugar in the milk and converted it into lactic acid. That acid is what thickens the milk and gives it that sour tang. That same fermentation process is still exactly how yogurt is made today. Even the word yogurt comes from the Turkish word yormak, which literally means to thicken. Champagne. At number 5, a mistake that, according to legend, became a medieval explosive device. In the 1600s, French winemakers were trying to make standard wine, but a cold winter halted fermentation before all the sugar was consumed. When spring warmed the cellars, the dormant yeast reactivated and kept feeding on the leftover sugar. Here's the simple science. As yeast eats sugar, it releases carbon dioxide gas as a byproduct. Trapped inside a sealed bottle, that gas has nowhere to go, so pressure just kept building until bottles exploded, sometimes destroying entire cellars. As the story is told, this dangerous fizzing wine was once called the devil's wine. Today, we pay a premium for it and call it champagne. That trapped gas is no joke either. A sealed champagne bottle holds up to 6 atmospheres of pressure, roughly 3 times what's inside a car tire. Noble rot wine. If you saw grapes suffocating under a layer of fuzzy gray mold, your instinct wouldn't be to eat them. But Botrytis cinerea, known as noble rot, is a fungus that punctures tiny holes through the grape's skin. In simple terms, that lets the water inside evaporate out while the sugar stays behind, so the same amount of sugar ends up packed into a much smaller, shriveled grape. The result is some of the most prized, expensive dessert wines in the world. That concentrated sugar comes at a price. Some noble rot wines from Hungary's Tokaj region have sold for over $40,000 for a single bottle. Soy sauce, coming in at number 3, the condiment sitting in your fridge right now. Around 3,000 years ago in China, salt was expensive, so people packed fish and soybeans in salt to preserve them. The soybeans eventually fermented, growing a specific mold called Aspergillus oryzae. Here's what that mold was actually doing. It produced enzymes that broke the soybean proteins down into amino acids, including one called glutamate, the exact molecule your tongue detects as umami flavor. Blue cheese. At number 2, a food eaten specifically for its mold. Legend has it that a French shepherd left his lunch of rye bread and sheep's milk cheese in a damp cave near Roquefort and forgot about it for months. When he returned, a fungus from the bread had spread into the cheese, creating the sharp, blue-veined cheese we know today. That fungus, Penicillium roqueforti, simply needs moisture, mild acidity, and time to grow. And a damp cave happens to provide exactly those conditions, letting it spread through the cheese and break down its fats into that sharp, tangy bite. Even today, French law says true Roquefort can only be aged in those exact same caves near the village. Nowhere else on Earth counts. Sushi. And finally, the mistake that birthed a culinary empire. Today, sushi is a symbol of fresh, precise dining. But centuries ago in Southeast Asia, it began as a survival technique called narazushi. People gutted and salted fish, then packed it in fermenting rice. Here's the simple science behind it. Fermenting rice produces lactic acid, which lowers the pH low enough to stop harmful bacteria from growing on the fish. It's essentially natural pickling that happened to also preserve meat for months at a time. Here's the part that surprises people. The fermented rice itself was discarded. Only the preserved fish was eaten. It wasn't until the 1800s that chefs began using fresh fish with vinegared rice instead, creating the sushi we recognize today. That vinegared rice shortcut is called edome-style sushi, named after Tokyo Bay, where it was popularized as fast food for busy city workers.